All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for hopping on. This is the ax2 Foundation's first YouTube live stream. So we're really excited to be here, and we're excited to have you guys on the live as well. So we'll start with some quick introductions, and then we'll get into it. So my name is Kate. I do community for ax2. If you've spent any time in the Discord or the Telegram, you've probably seen me around. So yeah, with that, I'll pass it off to Milap. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, it's Mishram Milap. I've worked on the cryptography layer and I just focus on the security of the network in general. And also I've been working on the parameters for a network that we'll be talking about today.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. This is Sergey. Great to be here. So I think let's just dive into this. Today's call, I think, for the most part, we can keep it in a form of Q&A as much as possible. I think our goal so far has been to just relay some of the information about the parameters, inflations, or transaction fees that will be set on the ax2 network for the Genesis. I think it's important to understand kind of a few things, right? So ax2 network, we're interconnecting all kinds of different ecosystems. And I think the incentives and the rewards are a complicated function in order to help us design a system that remains secure, decentralized, but also incentivizes all the participants in the right way. At least short term. I think long term, these things are definitely hard to predict. That being said, all the parameters can be upgraded on the network, right? So the network itself, because it's based around the Cosmos SDK, it has a governance module. So anybody can propose an upgrade. Anybody can vote on those upgrades. People can change the behavior of the system through governance proposal, PR, software upgrades, and so on and so forth. So all of those things are definitely going to be possible on the network once it goes live. But I guess to begin with, perhaps it's good to understand that on a high level, the system consists of three different components behind the inflation rewards on the ax2 network, right? And so, Milab, do you want to just talk a little bit about that? What are the three components that we have that define the total inflation and rewards on the network?
Yep, sounds good. I can take that. As you might already know, the ax2 network is built over the Cosmos SDK. So we run over the Tendermint consensus algorithm. So we will have the Tendermint consensus rewards, and we're setting the parameters for that. So that's only the one component that comes from the consensus layer, is that what is the inflationary rewards for the participating in consensus. So that's one key part of the reward structure. The other structure is that we have multi-party signing protocols that our validators can choose to participate in. That will be used for like signing on, sort of write oracle calls on the network. So that involves participating in the multi-sig algorithm. So validators will have key shares for this protocol, and then they will sort of participate and they'll sign off on commands and for the network. So we'll be having rewards for participation for this. And finally, we will have rewards for any validators who support external chains. So supporting external chains means that validators will run a node for a specific external chain and signal support for it, which means that the network will ask them to vote on certain external chain events. So when validators vote on these chain events, they will get rewards for this. And then the more chains validators support, the bigger the rewards there are. So those are the three major components for the network. Maybe I'll dive into the specific ones and talk about how the rewards work for the individual components. All right. So for the Tendermint layer, there is the inflation rate, there's a minimum and maximum inflation rate parameter that the Cosmos SDK has. So this will be the minimum and maximum inflation rate, and based on the stake that's delegated, that's bonded in the network at the current point in time, there will be a inflation rate determined by the tenement layer regarding that. So for our network, we are thinking of doing, so for the tenement layer, it would be like the minimum to maximum inflation rate would be from 5 to 7.5%. And the goal bonded, I mean, so we have gotten these parameters based on sort of the current, we got based on the current parameters that a lot of the Cosmos chains use, which is sort of just 67% is the bonded ratio that we target. For multi-sig participation, because it's also a key component of our network, we plan to have the same reward structure for the multi-sig participation as the tenement layer. So if you choose to participate in the multi-sig party signing protocols, then there's also you will get the same amount of reward as the tenement layer. So the base inflation rate ends up being between 10 to 15%. That will vary in. And then finally, so let's talk about the external chain rewards. So suppose you want to support, say, Ethereum. You want to, if as a validator, you want to become a chain maintainer for Ethereum. Then when you signal support for it, and when you vote on events for that take place on the Ethereum network, then the network provides 2% rewards for maintaining the Ethereum chain, and that is distributed among the validators who support it. So the validators who support it get a proportion of that reward based on their sort of consensus power. And we have done it in this way so that there's a huge incentive to join to maintain chains that don't have a lot of validators, because validators will get a much higher proportion as a result. So and then there is no bound on the number of chains we want to support, and the number of rewards there will be as a result for supporting chains. So the external chain inflation reward is going to be will become a big component of our reward structure. So
yeah, and I guess just a couple notes there. I think one, if you run in a validator on Axelar, whenever you setting up an external chain and you're voting on events from it, you don't have to run a validator node for those chains, right? So you only run a regular node. So the resources there are, a lot smaller than running a full validator node. You don't have to generate keys and so on and so forth. So, it's usually pretty straightforward to set those up. And I think while initially I think the rewards has been set such that initially we want to get through like a bootstrapping phase, right, where a lot of the folks join and participate in a lot of chains. Definitely I think in the longer term, perhaps the community and other people will have to readjust some of these parameters, right? Either tweaking them or capping what like a validator can earn, or setting up like lower numbers for some of these things, because as Milab said, we can't have an unbounded inflation rate overall in the system. So but initially, while the network is being bootstrapped, the rewards are pretty high to encourage a diverse set of folks to join.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I guess to summarize, right, when you join as a validator, you spin up a Tendermint consensus, you set up a secondary process for this multi-party protocols, and then you register on external chains that you want to vote, and then your rewards is going to be a combination of those three things and your participation in those three different components of the network. If one of them is down, right, so for instance, let's talk about that, right? So let's say, let's start with a simple one, right? Like, Milab, what happens when you don't correctly vote on an event from an external chain, right? So suppose you enrolled to vote on events from Ethereum. There was an event where you had to vote for a transfer, but you ended up not voting for it. What happens to that?
Yep, yeah, that's a good question to start with. So the way rewards are accrued differ based on the components. So maybe I'll give a brief review of that. So with the tendermint consensus layer, the Cosmos SDK, like we let the Cosmos SDK decide sort of the reward accruals and releases for the external chain voting. So the way it works is that rewards are accrued for all validators that maintain chain, like any chain per block. So we'll have a reward pool. So the validators will accrue rewards for maintaining being a chain maintainer. And when they successfully vote on an event, by successfully, like the definition of successfully here is that the vote that they had turned out to be the majority vote for that poll. And if that is the case, then the rewards are released to this validator for maintaining that chain. And if they fail to vote, or if they vote but it's not the majority vote, then these rewards that were accrued are cleared. So that's this is to, of course, disincentivize them from misbehaving or not being live to vote on the network. And so that's example of the external chain voting. Maybe I'll talk about the multi-party signing protocols now, about how that works. So the model for that is that we want validators, like the constraint there is that we really want liveness. So we want validators to be ready to be able to participate in keygen and sign, so that our official so that our network is very responsive. So the mechanism we have for this is that so the validator, when they create their validator, they have to register a broadcaster account. So this broadcaster account is used to broadcast all the network-related messages for our network. To have this broadcaster account, they need a minimum of, say, like five of the Axler network tokens that will exist on launch. And then we recommend that validators fund these broadcast accounts with at least 100 of these. But these sort of messages that are sent from the broadcast account will be refunded by the network automatically because it's part of just the network maintenance. So through these broadcaster accounts, each validator who chooses to participate in the multi-party protocols will broadcast a heartbeat like every 50 blocks. These heartbeats signal liveness for participating in the multi-party protocols. So if the validator is posting heartbeats regularly, and if their status based on attendance layer is live, so for example, if they are not unbonding or they are not jailed, etc., then when it comes time to sort of so the network will be taking snapshots for validators to include for the next keygen every so often. And if this is the case, and if the validators have sort of enough voting power, then they will be included in the snapshot that will be taken for keygen. And once they're including the keygen, like whenever there is a signed request, the validators will have to submit signatures for this. So whenever the validators post heartbeat accounts, this is when the rewards are accrued for the multi-party signing protocols, and the rewards are released whenever keygen and sign sort of complete successfully. So we release. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. There's a bit incorrect. Maybe I should clarify. So we accrue the rewards again per block for multi-party protocols, and whenever a validator posts a heartbeat, that is when we release rewards. If a validator does not post a heartbeat, then they lose the rewards for the time that they're not posting a heartbeat for. So, for example, if a validator missed posting a heartbeat for, say, misposting one heartbeat, then basically they are, for all the blocks that they haven't, that they're falling behind on the heartbeat for, they will be missing out on rewards for those blocks. So we really want to sort of incentivize liveness through this heartbeat mechanism.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. Yeah, I guess on the high level, just to kind of recap, right? Whenever you participate in multi-party protocols, you execute this heartbeat, right? And then if you successfully post that on chain, indicating that you have all the multi-party backend kind of correctly set up, you get rewards, right? If you don't reply to those messages correctly, then you lose some rewards.
Yep. And
Awesome.
maybe we want to talk about the parameters regarding what happens when you don't participate successfully. Like, what are the parameters and what do we do in that case?
Yeah, so let's actually quickly go through a couple of questions I think that's been coming up through the chat, and then we can talk about
let's do that.
Some of the parameters. So, okay, there's a question about transaction fees. I think we'll come back to this a little bit later when we talk about transaction fees. There's a question, how will you know who is actually running their external chain nodes and who is just put in public RPC endpoints? So that's a great question. I think the reality is that we can't know these things correctly. And so what we're going to do is the following. At least initially, we're going to encourage all of the validators that are configuring their nodes to actually post and disclose how they set things up, right? So we'll collect some information from some of the validators. If you are planning on running a validator, you should describe what is your setup, how you configuring it, and so on and so forth. And the initial delegations from either the users and the foundation should definitely include that as one of the parameters when they decide how to distribute their delegations. So it's not an easy question to decide programmably on chain. So we're going to have to rely on some of the reputation of the validators for this.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So Milab, let's go back to then to your question about the penalties, right?
Yep. Yeah. Let's talk about penalties and on the disincentives. So, okay. So let me start with just the multi-party protocol, since we talked about that recently. So as I mentioned that, for example, if a validator is included in a snapshot for participating in keygen, but they miss participating on, say, sign events later down the line, or whenever the network requests these events, then there's a high penalty for that. So the validator will basically lock from participating in multi-party protocols for about half a day. So the amount of blocks corresponding to about half a day of time, and for the duration of this time, like, they would not be able to earn any rewards. So that's a strong disincentive from not being live, especially if you're included in the snapshot for signing. To decide whether validators are included, we have a bunch of different things that we check, whether they're including these snapshots. So, as I mentioned, we check if they have heartbeats. So if you're not posting heartbeats regularly, your validator would not be getting rewards accrued ever per block. So if the validator has issues in the sense that if they have been missing on signing blocks for, say, more than if they have missed more than 5% of blocks in the last signing window, which is going to be like 35,000 blocks, then they also won't be included in the snapshot for multi-party protocols. So yeah, we have quite strict requirements on the liveness side of for multi-party signing protocols. Talking about the Tendermint consensus layer, so based on the current parameters that other Cosmos chains have, we have decided to have a sort of signing block window of 35,000 blocks, so that corresponds to about 2 days of time at sort of a block time of 5 seconds. And the validators will have to be to sign 50% of all the blocks in this window. So that means that we require a validator to be up for 1 day in every 2-day window. So basically the decision for this is, validators have to do maintenance operations and whatnot every now and then. So we want to give them some time so that they can do these things and still get back up without being penalized in a too high of a manner for the Tendermint consensus layer. If they don't follow, if the validator misses out on signing more than this threshold that we have, then they then they get slashed for that. So this is the parameter we have is 0.01% for that. If they choose to if they double sign blocks, then there's a slashing fraction of like 2% on the network that they will incur. And once they are jailed according to the Cosmos SDK, then according to Tendermint, then they'll be they will be they have to wait for duration of 2 hours, so number of blocks corresponding to that, before they can unjail themselves. So that's on the Tendermint side. And yeah, I mean, yeah, those are the main things in terms of what parameters what it should be concerned about.
Awesome, sounds good. All right, let's talk about the second point here, a little bit about the transaction fees, right? So on the high level, whenever you transfer in a request from a source chain to a destination chain, there are 3 transaction fees that have to be paid, right? There is a transaction fee on the source chain, there is a transaction fee on the accelerator chain, and there's a transaction fee on the destination chain. And I think in designing the system, we really try to optimize for the user experience. And the way that ended up resulting in is that we only want the users to have to pay the transaction fee on the source chain in the assets that they transfer, for instance, right? So if you send in a message to an XLA gateway, there is a certain fee that will be kind of collected in that asset. And the rest of the fees are, at least initially, will be covered by various microservices that are running on top of the network, right? So the fee on the XL network, the fee on the destination chain. So you as a user don't have to think about those. You don't have to think, how do I get like this other token in order to pay a transaction fee? You just send the transaction, to the gateway address. And the fee will automatically be subtracted in that transaction, and then you don't have to think about anything else down the line. You can definitely pay the fees and relay the messages yourself if you want, but it's not a requirement, right? There will be kind of additional microservices and kind of relayer functionalities that are built around the network that will subsidize these fees for you. So I guess that being said, Milab, do you want to talk about the actual parameters and what they mean?
Yep. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so actually one of the questions is quite related, so maybe I'll start with that. So someone asked that the transaction fees on Ethereum is sort of the 0.1%. So and then what happens when you have sort of different chains which are cheaper in terms of transaction fees? So that's a great question. And yes, our parameters will depend on which chains sort of you're sourcing or you're going from and to. So in the case for, say, Ethereum, for example, if you have a transfer, say, any source that's from any chain and is going to where the destination is Ethereum, then will be then the transaction transfer fee for that will be 0.1%. So 0.1% of your asset from the source chain will be taken as the transfer fee if the destination is Ethereum. And then for chains that have much lower transaction fees compared to Ethereum, then our parameter for that is 0.05%. So that's the current parameter we have for all other destination chains. So including, say, if you're coming back to Cosmos chains, if your destination is Cosmos chains. We will revisit this based on sort of what we in practice, like what we experience in terms of what are the gas fees and what transaction fee we are incurring on other chains for relaying. But those are the initial parameters we are going with. But yeah, specifically because Ethereum has high transaction fees, it has a specific parameter right now. Mm-hmm.
Yep, got it. Makes sense. Yeah, I guess to summarize, right, transaction fees can vary. I think Ethereum right now, is set to be higher because of like just insane fees that the relayer services have to cover in order to process the transactions. But yeah, they can be tuned. Like anybody can again, put a proposal to upgrade these things. These are programmable kind of parameters on chain.
Yep.
Awesome. Sounds good. So let's see if we have any other questions in the meantime. Okay, what is slashed? Is it validator stake or delegator stake? It's the stake delegated to the validators that gets slashed. So it's a kind of standard model from Cosmos chains.
Yep.
All right. Let's see quickly. Perhaps maybe good to cover a couple other parameters in the document, right? So there is unbound time. I think currently it's set to 7 days. So what that means is that if a validator decides to withdraw their participation, or a user decides to withdraw their stake from a validator, then it will take you 7 days for that stake to be unbonded from the system. So I think in some of the Cosmos chains it's set to 21, but we set it to be lower because I feel like that's sufficient to protect against long-range attacks and other things.
Yep, that's right.
All right.
Yeah. Another parameter is that like the maximum validators that can be that are active simultaneously for a tenements layer. So that's going to be 50 initially as we start. Yep.
Yeah, and again, what that 50 means is that there could be a lot more validators, and we encourage people to run as validators. The top 50 are selected to participate in the tenement consensus, right? So the top 50 based on the stake delegated to them.
Yep. Yep. And then we do something similar for the multi-party protocols too. So when we take the snapshot, we first filter by all the validators that are active, like posting heartbeats, like not bonding, jailed, etc. And based on from that, we order them based on their consensus power, and then those are the ones that get selected. Kijun side.
Yep. All right. A couple other questions from the chat. Is it possible for Windows PC to run a node? I mean, if you install, I guess, a subsystem, right, for Linux, you can try to spin up, a node. But without a Linux subsystem, I think it would be pretty challenging.
Yep.
All right. Another question from Jamma at Lunanova. If we're running on 5 chains and miss a multisig on one chain, do we lose sig rewards on that chain or on all chains? Good. So so the multi-party protocol rewards are chain agnostic. So meaning that it's one reward rate that's set at the network layer, and you're using that sub process to generate signatures for all chains. So if you miss on an event for a particular chain, then you're going to lose the entire reward corresponding to that period. And again, that's because it's just one process. It's the same process that you're going to use to generate these messages for all chains. You don't have to set up external nodes or anything like that. It lives right by the Tendermint consensus, so you will lose the rewards for that entirely.
Yep. And to clarify, is that whenever for external chains, a poll is kicked off, like whenever a poll concludes, like the rewards start accruing for every block, and then when the next vote occurs, and once that completes successfully, then if your validator participated correctly in that, then they will get the rewards released to them or cleared if it wasn't successful participation. Yeah, and that is per chain. So if you miss it for one chain, that's like the other chains are not affected.
Yep, makes sense. There's a question about hardware requirements. I think we have a document summarizing some of these hardware requirements on the testnet right now. I think it may need to be updated. I'm not sure when it's last time it was revisited, but maybe let me see if I can link it. All right. well, I think I can't find the link right now, but I think we can summarize it in the notes after this call and link the requirements.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, but yeah, if you go to docs.axwell.dev, I think you will be able to find some of these hardware requirements. Here we go. Thanks, Kinsover.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. When we'll reopen the testnet node form, don't have information on that, but the goal is to kind of just open up the test network to everybody over the coming weeks or month and allow anybody to play and participate it, both prior to the main network launch and subsequently to the network launch. The testnet will always be there as a as a playground, as a testing environment, as a place to build your initial tooling and so on and so forth.
Yep.
All right. Let's see, another quick question about Valdi. If it tries to query an RPC and is initially unsuccessful, does it try again? If so, what is the frequency? How many times? Great question. I actually don't know the answer on this on top of my head. Milad, do you know?
Not sure, actually. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we have a retry mechanism right now itself.
Yeah, I mean, usually in a lot of these things, like the votes can be finalized pretty quickly. So assuming there is a threshold that's sort of passed for a vote, it can be just closed. So I think we'll have to take this offline. But even if there is a retry, you may just be too late on the vote and may already be closed.
Yeah, it seems that team's mentioning that we don't have a retry mechanism for this, at least right now. Yep. Yeah, I think I guess to follow up on that, something you mentioned there is that, yeah, I mean, the parameters decide, we have thresholds for participation, so for keygen, signing, participation, and voting. So, not everyone, like we don't expect all that, at every point in time, everyone will participate. So based on these thresholds, the polls will go through and the signing and keygen will occur.
Yep, makes sense.
Yeah,
and the thresholds are also, of course, upgradable. I think they're changeable, like on the, at the consensus layer and smart contracts and so on and so forth.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yep.
Yep.
I think we pretty much covered everything in the Medium post. Any other questions from the chat, or Kate, do you know if any other questions came from other channels?
I don't have any questions from the other channels. I mean, we've gotten some really great questions in the chat. For the last one, Gemma, that we didn't answer, and for anyone who had to hop off, we'll be doing a quick recap as well as kind of some of the main points to the questions asked in our Discord. So yeah, if you haven't already, hop on our Discord. There's a bunch of channels there. It'll probably be answered in the testnet QA channel. As well as pinned in the announcement. So yeah, anyone who had to hop off or anyone wanting a quick recap of specifically the questions, we'll post it all there.
Mm-hmm. One question I have seen sort of from the community a bit is regarding sort of unbonding and sort of undelegation for when they're participating in multi-party protocols. So I think maybe I should mention a bit about that. So the model we have is that like when you participate in say so suppose a validator was included in a snapshot for a keygen, then that key is considered to be active for at least 4 sort of rotations. So we rotate our keys. So new snapshots will be taken constantly as the validator set updates. But the keys are considered active for some amount of rotations. So when this is the case, like we don't allow undelegations or validators to unbond or deactivate their broadcaster account until the snapshot they participated has been rotated out, essentially. So they have to wait basically for 4 key rotations before which they can unbond. So I think that's another constraint, like liveness requirement we have. That's worth
Yeah,
knowing
no,
about.
I think that's a good point. And I think in general, as a validator on the network, you should realize that this is running an XL validator, is definitely kind of a commitment, right, on your behalf. It's a commitment that you have to maintain, these RPC connections. It's a commitment that you run this multi-party signing protocols correctly, that you back up your keys, right, and do all the kind of correct safety precautions. So again, I strongly encourage anybody who is setting up a validator and preparing it towards a production environment to document your setup, right? Explain to the community what your setup consists of, what the architecture is, what are your alerting metrics look like, what are your backup response protocols look like, and so on and so forth. Because as we'll be as the network will kind of transfer a lot of value across different ecosystems, we need to make sure that the network liveness and safety is up to the highest standard possible.
Yep, and Sergey mentioned testnet is a great place to try out all of these things, and you can reach us out to us on Discord if you have any issues. We'll be happy to help.
Awesome, sounds great. Well, I think this was a great chat. Thanks, Milap, for joining. Thanks, Kate. And any questions? Yeah, shoot us a note on Discord, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Like I said, this is the Ax2 Foundation's first live AMA on YouTube. So yeah, thanks, everyone, for being here. Thanks for the great questions. Milap, Sergey, thanks for the overview. And yeah, we'll continue the discussion and any questions that anyone has over in our Discord.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.